everyone. Welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. I'm Wendy and I'm so happy you're here. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome, and I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button down below as well as the little bell right next to it so that you'll be notified every time I upload a brand new video. If you like these projects, don't forget to give them a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think, and now without further ado, let's get started. For our first Dollar Tree project, I'm going to be using 4 square photo frames and a plant hanger chain. So the first thing I'm going to do is take everything out of my frames, and I'm going to pull up the tabs very gently so that I don't break or chip my frame. And then using a pair of needle nose pliers, I'm going to pull them completely out so they don't show from the front. We're only going to be making 2 frames, but I needed 4 because I'll be using the glass from the other 2, and then I'll set the other 2 frames aside in case I need them for a future project. So now I'm going to use my super glue gel from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to make a bead all the way around my frame on the inside, and then I'm going to take my glass and stick it right inside and give it a little push so that it grabs to that glue and stays in place. So this is a super easy DIY, and the hardest part, or the most time consuming, was actually cleaning the glass. So I first used some Windex to get that all cleaned up, but even though these were individually wrapped, there was some kind of film on it that I had to use a razor blade to scrape it off. But I wanted to make sure that it was super clean so that when I sandwiched my 2 pieces of glass together, there would be nothing inside. So I found this pretty trim and scoreboard by We Are Memory Keepers at Ross's Dress for Less for $9.99, and it's $24.99 at Joann's, so you know I love a bargain, and I totally scored on this one. See what I did there? But anyway, I'm going to use this to get a nice straight cut on my printouts that I made on my computer. Now these frames are 11 by 11, so they're nice sized. But since my copy paper is only 8.5 by 11, I made it into an 8.5 by 8.5 square, which is perfect for our frames. And you may recognize these lyrics I printed out. They're from the song called Sparrows by Cory Asbury, and I'll have that linked in the description box below. But anytime I feel myself starting to get overwhelmed or anxious about something, it never fails. This song comes on, and I know it's Jesus's way of calming me down and letting me know he's got me. And I call these his sweet signs, and this has kind of become my theme song. So as you just saw, I used some Dollar Tree glue dots to adhere my paper to the middle of my second piece of glass, and then used my super glue again to attach that behind the front piece. So now I'm taking 1 strand of chain from the plant hanger by using my pliers to open up the hook at the top, and it's the perfect size for these frames, and I want the flat piece to be on both sides. So I opened the second link at the end and turned the last link over and then closed it back up so I could attach it to my frame, if that makes sense. Then I added some more super glue and a thumbtack to secure it at each end. And here it is all finished, and I think these are so pretty and modern farmhouse looking. I used the font Lucida Grande, which is pretty simple and maybe a little too plain looking, but I thought it gave these a super clean and crisp look. But I have another project in mind using these same lyrics where I'll use a fancier font and layout. And you can also see I did one with the left justification and then the right one where it's all lined up on the right side. But I love how these turned out, and I hope you like them too. So speaking of Cory Asbury, I have another Cory I want to introduce you to if you don't already know her. This is Cory at Crafted by Cory, and she started her channel about 8 months ago and is already at 13,000 subscribers, and I'm just so proud of her. So today we're doing a fun spring mystery box collaboration where we sent each other a few Dollar Tree items, and I love doing these because you guys know I love perky prizes. And I think she was going a little easy on me because these all scream spring, but the first thing she sent was this terrarium planter and then some mini terracotta flower pots, and then this chalkboard with the little wooden kickstand in the back, and then this sweet little birdhouse. and then a wooden tray. And all of the wooden items you can find in the crafter's square. So for this project, I'm going to be using 2 of the terrarium planters and then 2 Christmas signs and a leftover piece of those 3D wreath forms, and I'll show you what that is in our final DIY project. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull off the paper from my square signs, and you know I really don't like to sand, so you could just sand these, but ever since I found that my CRICUT spatula can pull this paper up on some of these signs, it's like a whole new world. And then I only have to sand a little bit of that paper off to get a nice flat surface. And then using a flathead screwdriver, I'm going to pry up those sawtooth hangers and set those aside because we're going to be using these vertically instead of horizontally. So now I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in white and I'm going to give this a pretty light coat because I like that brown and I want this to look like wood. So I'm going to give it a solid coat, but some of that brown will still show up. And then as it's getting dry, I'm going to get all of my brush strokes out by giving it one last continuous stroke all the way across. So now I'm going to cut my wire circle, and I want to use these little round parts to secure what will become hooks to our wood signs. So I'm going to use my wire cutters to make a snip about 3 inches from that piece on both sides, and then I'll make another cut in the center so that I have 2 equal pieces. And then I'm going to bend them into an upside down U shape, and then using some needle nose pliers, I'll make a small hook that will hold my terrarium planters. And then I'll take these outside and spray paint them in my matte black Krylon paint. So now that my wood blocks are completely dry, I'm going to go back in with my Waverly wax in Antique and give it some more distressing. And then I'm going to take my sandpaper and sand it even more along the edges just to give it a super rustic and pretty farmhouse look. So now to fill our terrariums, I'm going to be using some Dollar Tree succulents and some Spanish moss in the green color. And I don't end up using the amaranthus in this project, but I'll use it in the last one. And so I'm just taking a handful of that moss and just tucking it inside the big hole. And this gets really messy, so I like to use a tray underneath. And then when I'm done with my moss, I'm just going to close it up by folding it over and putting a piece of painter's tape on there so it doesn't get everywhere. So I really like the shape of the Dollar Tree succulents, but they're a little bit too bright for me. And plus, since our moss is green, I want to lighten them up a little bit. So I'm just going to take some Waverly chalk paint in the white and just brush that over kind of with a dry brush and just get those a little softer looking and have more of a color difference between the moss and the succulents. So now I'm going to take my sawtooth hangers and hammer those in very gently, and usually the Dollar Tree ones have them a little bit too high so they show when they're hanging. So I did put them down a little bit lower so that we don't have that problem. So then to attach our hooks, I'm going to place the little circle about 1/3 of the way down and mark it with a pencil. And then I'll use my cordless drill to make a tiny hole through the wood, and then a second hole just a smidge next to it. And you can use a hammer and nail to make your holes if you don't have a drill. But I do have all of the tools you see me use listed in my Amazon store, which will be in the description box below. So after I get my holes drilled, I'm going to take some paddle wire and feed it through those 2 holes and then twist it in the back super tight. And then I'm going to make a 3rd hole just to the other side of my small circle so that I can put some more wire in there, and this will be secure and stay in place. So once I got both pairs of my wire twisted together and super tight, I'm going to take some hot glue and just pour that all over the back side, and then take a little piece of Dollar Tree felt and put it on top to give it a cleaner finish. So now to cover up our wire mechanism, which really wasn't that ugly, but I really wanted to use this faux leather ribbon. And so I'm going to cut a piece about 4¼ inches, and then I'm going to take some hot glue and just attach it on both sides. And then I'm going to use some of these pop dots that I painted in the Waverly chalk paint in ink. And I do this ahead of time. Anytime I'm doing a project that needs this, I do a few more just in case I have something else that I can use it on and they're already ready to go. So I'm just going to attach those two to each side and they are all done. And here they are all finished, and I think these are so pretty. The wood looks like a real piece of chunky wood, I think anyway. I really love the combination of modern farmhouse and the boho aesthetic, so it'll work with either style. And you see the string art I have next to these. We're going to be making that in this video also, but it's from a kit. So even though we're actually doing 6 projects, only 5 of them are Dollar Tree projects. So that's why I put 5 in the title. So anyway, I love how this turned out and I hope you like them too. For our next project, we're going to be using the mini flower pots, the birdhouse, the chalkboard, and then from Walmart, I have a dowel that I had on hand. But you can also use these super long barbecue skewers from the Dollar Tree, which are usually out with their summer line. So be on the lookout for those pretty soon because they always come in handy. So the first thing I'm going to do is paint my little flower pots using my white chalk paint. And I paint in the inside too, just in case you see any of that peeking out. And then I'm going to use my black chalk paint, which is called ink. And I'm going to paint the roof of my birdhouse and the base and then his little balcony. And then I'll paint the frame of my chalkboard with the white chalk paint. So now I'm going to use some of the ever so popular black and white shelf paper to cover my birdhouse. And I originally had planned to do this in 4 separate pieces to cover each side, but then I decided to try to make it go all the way around in one continuous piece, and that took a little more time, but once I got it cut out, I traced it onto a piece of cardstock so I could share it with you guys. And you can use it to cover your Dollar Tree birdhouse with whatever pattern or paper you want. So I have to have my sister-in-law make it into a PDF because I have absolutely no idea how to do that. So if you look in the description box and it's not there, just email me, and as soon as she does that, I'll send it out to you. And you'll still have to trim it a little bit to get it perfect, but this should make it way easier. So now I'm going to use what I call my big fat nail to make the hole at the bottom of my tiny pots a little bit bigger so that I can stick my dowel into them. So I'm just going to tap away a little bit at a time just to chisel it away and hopefully not break it, because I did break one. But I'm going to get that in there, and then I'm going to slide those onto my large dowel. So now I'm going to take my drill and I'm going to make a hole at the bottom of my birdhouse, and then I'm going to place that on the very top of my dowel. So then to get my pots in the place that I want them to be, they were pretty tight because I didn't make the holes too terribly big. But to keep them in place, I'm going to use my hot glue and just make a bead all the way around my stick. And then I'll roll that around so that it distributes kind of evenly and doesn't drip off. And then that'll keep my pots in place. So I ended up making two different options for this sign, and I couldn't decide which one I wanted to use, either Birdie Buffet or Every Birdie's Welcome. So I ended up using the Birdie Buffet because I thought that was funny, and I guess it'll make sense when you see this if you didn't see it in the thumbnail. So I'm going to be transferring these words onto my sign, so I'm going to use a piece of white chalk to rub all over the back, and then I'm going to use a pencil and just go over the front part, and then it will transfer those letters onto my board. And then I can go back over it with a white paint pen. Now, if you're a member of the Patreon Dove's Nest or Sparrow's Nest, you'll have access to these designs for free, and they'll also be available in my Etsy shop. And even if you don't have a cutter, you can still print these out and use this method to transfer it onto your project. So now I'm going to take some different patterns of 5/8 inch ribbon, and Dollar Tree used to have the light pink also, but I got this off of Amazon. So I'm just going to tie each of these into a sweet little bow and then leave some long tails hanging, and then I'm going to bunch them all together and use a chenille stem to tie them into one big perky bow. And then I'm going to hot glue that to the side of my birdhouse. So now I'm going to take my black chalk paint and just use a dry brush effect all over my pots to get them looking a little more distressed, because I thought they looked too new being perfectly white. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the frame of my sign, and then I'm going to take the little kickstand off of my sign and glue that to the bottom part of my dowel. And there's a little side piece there where that kickstand was attached, so you have even more area to get some hot glue on there, and it stays nice and snug and in place. And then I took my sandpaper and distressed the roof and the base of my birdhouse. And here it is, all finished, and this is supposed to be bird seed, but I don't have any, so it's actually kitty litter. So I'm not leaving this out here, but you get the idea. It's a little birdie buffet. But I think it's so cute, and I was able to use 3 of the items that Cory sent me. But I love how this turned out. It's only for decoration, so don't worry, I took it back in. But this would be really cute in a big potted plant or in your garden if you really do have some bird seed. I don't know, maybe the ribbons would scare the birdies away, but I love how this turned out, and I hope you like it too. For our next project, I got this Yo string art kit from Amazon for $21.99, and this is such a cute little set. It comes with 3 different projects, so technically they're about a little over $7 each, but they are so cutie patootie, and they're all nice and big, and one is 11 by 11, and then the other 2 are 11 by 14. And as you saw, we're going to be making the sweet little deer, but the kit includes all of the nails, the string, the embellishments, and even the sawtooth hangers. And if you get tired of these designs, you can actually turn the boards over and do something else. So as you can see, there's already some marks where you're going to put your nails in, and you're just going to hammer it in, and then you want to try and make them the same height. So I'm just going to tap away and just start putting these nails in, and if they go in crooked, you're just going to push them over and make them stand up nice and straight. And then once you get all of your nails in, you'll just start with your string and just tie it off in a knot, and then just start following your pattern so that you can do the outline of your design. And then you're going to go back in and start crisscrossing and making it all nice and filled in. And I decided I wanted to leave the middle part of the nose open so that you could tell that that's what that was. But I think it turns out super cute. And that's one of the neat things about this project is that you can make it in whatever color string you want and embellish it however you want and just make it your own. This would also be a really good gift for a teenager or someone who's new to crafting or maybe a little bit bored from being home all the time. And the finished projects would be great gifts as well. And here's another look at how it turned out, and I love this so much, and it was really therapeutic too, just tapping in all of those nails. And even though I did lose part of my thumb fingernail, but anyway, I will have this linked in the description box below. I love it, and I hope you like it too. So since we're doing some modern farmhouse slash boho projects, I wanted to include this super easy project. And as you can see, this Kate and Laurel set of candlesticks is regular $99, but I know we can recreate this super simply using 3 Dollar Tree boxes and 3 of their candle holders. So easiest project in the world. I'm just going to remove the stickers, and I would have used the outside parts of these drawers so that there wasn't this little cutout, but I didn't have any more, so we're just going to use this and point those openings toward the back. So I'm just going to use my E6000 and my hot glue and attach those to the top side of my boxes, and you'll know that it has a good adhesion because it'll kind of spread out when you push it on top. So then I'm going to take these outside to my paint station, and I'm just going to paint them all using my Krylon matte black spray paint. And I gave these a really good coat, and then I came back, and after it was dry I did it one more time. And so once those were all nice and painted and dry, I just popped some white votive candles in them from the Dollar Tree, and here's how they turned out. And I think they look so pretty and high-end, and they're just so sleek and modern. But I love how these turned out, and I hope you guys like it too. For our final project, I'm going to be using the outside largest ring from these 3D wreath forms. And if you don't have these, you can always use the 12 or 14 inch wire wreath form and just cut that apart, and then you'll still have the 3 prongs that are left to make a wreath if you wanted to. So I had a little trouble trying to figure out something to do with this tray that Cory sent, but I decided to use it as a platform for this either centerpiece or hanging piece, but I think it turns out so cute. So all we're going to do is wire these together at the top through the little center rings, and I'm just using some paddle wire and just wrapping that around, and then I'm going to spread them apart at the bottom and see where I want my tray to go. And then I'm going to use a super sharp utility knife to make some little slits, and then just kind of scrape that out of there to give it a notch so that it'll have some place to grab onto those wire circles. So now I'm going to take this all outside, and using my Krylon Fusion matte black spray paint, I'm going to hang it from a nail that I hammered into the top part of my painting station, and then I'm just going to paint it using 2 coats just to make sure that everything is completely covered. So I did this a little earlier, but I'm using some emerald green Krylon spray paint to paint these amaranthuses that I showed you in the sconce DIY, but I ended up liking how they turned out so well that I decided to use them for this larger project. So the emerald green was a little bit too green, and I decided to use some moss chalk paint to add to it so that it would kind of resemble the string of pearl succulents that you see so often. It's not exact, but it has that idea. So now I'm going to take some floral foam and hot glue that to the bottom of my tray, and then I'm going to be using some boxwood from Walmart that I get for 97 cents, and I'm just going to fold those over at a 90-degree angle and cut most of that off, and then just stick that into my floral foam. And then I'm going to kind of flatten it down so that it hangs over the edges and fills up and covers all of that foam. And I'm going to use a total of 3 stems of that. And then I'll take those amaranthuses and stick those over to the side and let them hang down towards the left. So I found these hydrangeas in the prettiest shade of teal or aqua. I don't know what color it really is, but I don't have this in my decor, but I really wanted to use them because they're so stinking pretty. But I'm just going to cut those apart and then poke those into that floral foam at different heights and different levels. And I ended up using 2 stems of these. And then also from the Dollar Tree, I found these super pretty German statices, which I didn't know how to pronounce that because you guys know I don't know my flowers, so I had to Google it, but it's German Statice. And so I'm just going to use 2 stems of that and just place them throughout my greenery. So now I'm going to take 2 of the tumbling tower blocks and I'm going to shove those right in the top to keep that nice and separated and tight. And I'm using the ones that are already painted brown because the sides will kind of peek out at the end. So now I'm going to take some jute twine, and this is the wired kind from Dollar Tree. So I'm just going to make a loop at the top and then start wrapping it around on both sides, and then I'll move it back into the middle and just make a knot to keep it in place. Now if you're not going to hang this, because this can be used as a centerpiece and you can just sit it down like it's sitting right now on my work surface, you can just do it without adding that loop. And here it is all finished, and I think this is absolutely stunning. I love this so much. I didn't have any place to hang it in my home, so I'm just hanging it from my chandelier in the dining room so you can see it. I think this would be so pretty for a bridal shower or even a wedding, and you can, again, like I said, use it on your tabletop as a centerpiece. Of course, using your own colors and whatever suits your fancy. I didn't have time to do my Patreon shout outs this video or the last video, but I will do that next time, and there's so many of you and it just makes my heart so full, and I thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think. If you're coming over from Cory's channel, welcome, and I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button at the bottom and the little bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. Don't forget to check out Cory's spring mystery box video, and make sure you comment and give her some love. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye!